What's up, Infected, and welcome to the Kwarenteen. Today I have another review for you by the name of Lisboa. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that correctly. So what is Lisboa? Well, Lisboa is the Portuguese capital that back in, I'm wanting to say it's 1755, was hit by like a 9.5 earthquake or something really hot, really powerful. And it leveled a lot of the city, which then started fires that burned for 3 days. Then, because of the said earthquake, a tsunami also hit the city, so all three of them, that nice little trifecta, almost completely totaled the city, and it had to be rebuilt from scratch using the rubble as building materials from the city that previously stood there. Now, mechanically speaking, the game is a card-based action game where you all are trying to do various different things and collect wigs by rebuilding the city, appeasing the church, following different politicians' actions, and basically working off of each other's hard labor and trying to rebuild the city kind of all at the same time. Before we head over to the overview, I just want to mention first and foremost, there are a lot of rules for Lisboa. So I'm not going to be covering a lot of them. Actually, I probably won't be covering most of them for the sake of the video length. I'll kind of leave that for you to explore yourself. So let's just dive straight over to the overview. So as you can see here, Lisboa doesn't really even fit on in frame here, the entire board. But this is what your board is going to look like when you first set up the game. Now, I'm not going to go over all of the setup, but you're going to deal out these red cards here. You're going to put out your pieces as you see pretty much here. Now, these are all random, as you see over here, these cubes. Now, the cubes represent brown being the earthquake damage, blue being the tsunami damage, and red being the damage from the fire. So that's all of the rubble left over from the city, and you're going to be using it to better your player board in order to be more efficient, essentially. So let's look at a couple things on the board before we actually get started. First thing to note would be the city's treasury. As the city's treasury increases, the more money you'll be able to withdraw if you decide to withdraw, and the less renown you're going to need to pay to speak to the nobles. But as it goes lower, the more you're going to have to pay because the city's economy is tanking. Next up, you have the actual city of Lisboa, or if I'm not mistaken, now it's called Lisbon. But you have the city here, and each one of these spaces that you see here are city areas that the city or buildings can be built in. Now, it should be noted, I have the 2-player board on here. If you're playing with more than 2 players, you'll remove this, and you will fill in 2 cubes here, 3 cubes here, 2 cubes there. But for the sake of this, we'll go ahead and throw that back on there. And then each row has a scoring multiplier down here at the bottom, which is the number of wigs you're going to get for the political buildings that are in there, which will make a little bit more sense later. Then next up, you have the cardinal area here, which is you're trying to appease the church, and he's going to be moving around here. The priest, he'll be moving around here doing special little locations that are here on the board as he passes over them, and you're going to be able to claim these tokens here, which usually grant you permanent abilities throughout the rest of the game or give you free resources. So next up, you have the politics office here. You have the builder, the prime minister, and the king, each of which having their own offices below them where you're going to have your little influence markers here underneath. Below that, you're going to have their appropriate actions. So, such as, building and opening government offices, just to name a couple of them. And then you have minor actions here for when you do trade with the nobles, which I'll try to cover in a minute. Then below that, you have your influence marker here that you're going to be paying in order to visit the nobles. Then you have the decree board over on the far left, which essentially boils down to endgame scoring modifiers that give you special points and special benefits for the endgame scoring. Then each player is also going to get a player board. Now you're going to set up the player board kind of like this, and everybody's is going to look identical. And you're going to start out with one of each of the 4 different goods. So you have gold, books, cloth, and tools. And you're going to start with 1, and you're allowed to have 2 plus the number of these that you have filled, which will kind of make sense later. Then you're going to get a favor token, which matches the color of one of the political offices, which allows you to follow somebody. Outside of that, most of this game, once you learn how to play, is very symbol heavy. But once you understand what these symbols mean, everything in this game is actually very well explained by the symbols on the boards. So playing a game of Lisboa is actually fairly simple. You can only really do one of 4 things in your turn. Really one of 3 things. You can play one of the cards in the beginning that you get in the beginning of the game. You can play one to the bottom or to the top of your tableau here and do its effect. So you're going to look at the cards and there's an arrow at the top or the bottom, as you see here, and that's where it's going to slide onto your board. So for example, with this card, if I take it, and you can have 3 cards up top and 3 cards up bottom. So if I take it and slide it under here, you're going to immediately do what's here. So I would take this action, which allows me to just gain a favor of a political office of my choice. Then, that's it. After you've done that, you then have to trade with the nobles or sell goods. You must do one of those 2 if possible. Likewise, if I play this card at the bottom, because it's got the arrow at the top, and I put it under my board, you will gain gold equal to the bank's chart, so it starts off at 3, so in this case I would gain 3 gold, and then I would reduce the bank's level by 1 because I'm withdrawing money from the city bank. Then, that's it. I would then have to, because I played something onto my tableau, I would have to trade with the nobles or sell goods. Now it should be noted that anything that you see, like this, from your tableau is permanent. So permanently I'm going to have a special ability down here. And permanently, anytime I gain influence, I'm going to gain 0 from him. But some of them have, a 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. Now, what is trading with the nobles and selling goods? Now, you have these tokens here, and when you sell goods, you're going to sell goods on players' ships, which have a cargo capacity here, which I'll try to explain a little bit later, but you're going to gain gold equal to the value of that good. So gold, for example, is worth 6 gold, plus any gold that a ship would give you, plus any other bonuses that you might get from church tiles or anything like that. So if I wanted to sell gold, I would place a gold here in my own ship's cargo hold. It has a hold of 1, so I can only put 1 thing in it. But once a ship is, the hold has been full, you're going to flip this over and you're also going to gain victory points equal to whatever's on the back, which is always 1. So that does mean that I can sell goods to my opponent's ship. I get the gold, but once it sets sail, because its cargo's full, it will automatically give them victory points. So I get the money, whoever owns the ship gets the victory points. Now, trading with the nobles, you would choose any one of these 6 actions that you see below, and you can spend goods that you have based on what is below the different actions. For example, to do one of these 2 actions, I would need tools or gold. To do one of these, I would need books or gold, and to do one of these, I need cloth or gold. And you can do up to 2 of these by trading with the nobles. So maybe I want to build a ship, and then maybe I want to, deal with the church and move the church track. So you're going to do 2 of those, and then that would be the end of your turn. Now that was only one of the 4 different types of actions you can take. The other one, you can play a noble from your hand, and you can place it into the court. Now if you do this, you're going to take your marker and you're going to put it on there just to show that it's your turn, because people are going to be able to follow what you do. And when you do this, you have to pay influence, which is down here, equal to the number of other players' state officials modified by whatever level the bank is at. Once you've done that, you're going to get to choose one of the 2 actions here that you would normally get to choose from trading with the nobles. You're going to get to do it for free. Then you're going to do the main action of the 3, such as build buildings over in the city of Lisboa. These would be taking the cards that you saw over here. And then this one would be to open up state buildings. And once you've done that, and you've completed everything you're going to do, anybody else can spend these favor tokens that match the official here, and then they can do the same action, but they only get to do one of these 3. They don't get to take, one free one and then the main one. The next thing you could do is you can sponsor an event. So you can take one of the cards that do not have an official's face on it, and you can put it here. You would pay gold equal to the current treasury value, and then you would just do the action that it shows in the middle, and that's it. The last action you can do is you can take a card and just discard it from the game, which would then give you a single gold, and that ends your turn. So to end your turn, you're going, because you will have 4 cards in your hand, you're going to choose one of the 4 face-up cards here to replace into your hand. So these are always going to be the builder, these are always going to be him, these are always going to be him, these are always going to be them. So you're going to choose one of these and you're going to put it into your hand. All right, Lisboa. Well, first and foremost, we'll get the components out of the way. The components are outstanding. They are phenomenal. The board, the artwork on the board feels very historical. There's a lot going on. Holy crap, it is a very busy board. But once you understand that, the board layout is actually fairly intuitive. The symbols are fairly intuitive. All of the wood that comes in the game, the insert is stellar. Just everything about the game just screams quality. But gameplay-wise, this is a very sandboxy game. The game gives you all of the tools and goes, forge your own path to victory. Figure out how you would like to play. Do you exploit the church a lot and start burning through those tiles and getting church favor? Do you try to get ahead a little bit and burn through those, try to fill up your rubble stacks as fast as you can to burn the game through as fast as you can? Do you build ships and you just have an entire fleet of ships and you're the only one that exports, so you're just getting all of these, you're getting a bunch of money and getting a bunch of points? Do you build a bunch of cities in Lisboa? There's so much going on. And then some of the things that I didn't even record about, when you do build a building, you take a building from your tableau and put it on that building, and depending on where you take that from, it gives you other special benefits. And then the workers, these guys here that go into the political offices that you use to build the public offices, that winds up being like this big bidding war, especially with larger, 4 players. You're all bidding, and you can only have, 5 workers per office. But if there's more than 5, then you're gonna boot one of the people out in the halls, which is still there for them to be able to spend, but it's not going to adjust how much somebody has to pay in order to follow an action or to take an action there. And there's so much going on, and it's a really good game. I'm gonna put that on the table now. The game is phenomenal. Every game of this that I've played has been tense, and it's been a brain burnery, thinky game, and it's a blast. But the smallest mistake can put you behind, and so you're really thinking about, okay, what can I do to do this, and oh no, they did that. And so overall, it is a fantastic experience. However, every game has its flaws, and this game's no exception. The biggest flaw this game has, and this is going to be very hit or miss, and this is probably going to be very controversial. I will never teach this game to anybody else if I don't have to. The learning curve for this game is so incredibly steep, it is insane. Because, as you saw there, it boils down to 4 actions, but there's so much going on the board, and it's so hard to keep track of it all, and sometimes a small mistake can screw you. So you have to dump truck all of this information on somebody the first round of the game, because you don't get that many rounds, especially with higher player counts. So everybody has to know how everything works, and the symbols, while being very intuitive, really don't make any sense until you know what's going on. Once it's explained to you, you can glance at it and go, oh, okay, that means that earthquake cubes cost 3 gold to get rid of. So with that said, it is insanely hard to learn at first, but once you learn it, it's not really that big of a deal. It's just that initial learning curve, and teaching it is a huge headache. So overall, yes, I definitely recommend Lisboa. If you're into very heavy Euro style games like this, and you're okay with having your brain leak out of your nose a little bit while you're trying to learn, and you're okay with your players looking at you with a glossed over, I don't know what's going on kind of look, while you dump truck a bunch of information on them, then yes, I highly recommend the game. It is a very fun, a very enjoyable experience. The whole game, you're watching what everybody's doing. And in terms of his other game, Vinos, it is harder to learn than Vinos, and it's about the same enjoyment level. but it has a lot more going on behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, actually. It's super busy and so much going on. It's gonna turn a lot of people off just with how busy it looks, but overall it's a phenomenal game. I cannot recommend this game enough. So anyways, that is my review for Lisboa. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time in the Kwarenteen.